My name is Detective Pierce. And this case began with a call that sounded more like a confession than a warning. It came in early on a Monday morning, a distorted male voice, heavy breathing, static crackling through the line. The words were few, but clear enough to chill the room. Check the harbor bridge, before 5. Then silence. No name. No trace. Just that time limit, before 5. The dispatcher forwarded it to me, assuming it was another prank. We get plenty of those, false bomb threats, fake kidnappings, the usual noise. But something about the voice stayed with me. It didn't sound like someone joking. It sounded like someone terrified. By the time I got to the office, the clock was ticking down from 9 hours. I requested the bridge surveillance logs, traffic, maintenance schedules, inspection reports. Everything looked normal. No flagged activity. No suspicious vehicles. Still, I couldn't shake that feeling. I decided to visit the bridge myself. The harbor bridge stretched across the city's gray morning skyline, steel ribs arching over the slow, dark water below. It was busy as always, cars rattling over its asphalt spine, trucks roaring through. I met with the site supervisor, a man named Cullen. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept in days. When I mentioned the call, he frowned. "Another threat? We get those sometimes," he said. "People think it's funny. Do you?" I asked. He hesitated. "Not really. Not since last month." That caught my attention. Last month? Cullen wouldn't say more at first. But when I pressed him, he admitted something had happened, a minor collapse on the southern maintenance platform. No one was hurt, but one of his men quit the next day, claiming something wasn't right with the supports. Officially, it was filed as a structural error. Unofficially, it sounded like the beginning of something bigger. I asked to see the area. Cullen led me down beneath the bridge, through the steel lattice and maintenance scaffolding. The air was thick with salt and rust, the low hum of traffic vibrating above us. And then, I saw it. Fresh welding marks along one of the load-bearing joints. Too clean, too new. Someone had been down here recently. And judging by the residue, whoever it was hadn't been trying to fix the bridge, they were trying to weaken it. I crouched over the steel beam, flashlight bouncing across jagged welds that weren't part of the original structure. The marks were precise, almost surgical. Someone had used a high-heat tool, probably a portable cutting torch, to weaken the joint. I ran a gloved hand along the surface. Small fragments of metal clung to my fingers. I bagged them for the lab, evidence that could point to the type of torch used, maybe even the brand. "Anything else unusual?" Cullen asked from above. I didn't answer immediately. I was watching the shadows. Across the opposite side of the bridge, hidden among the steel girders, a figure moved. At first, I thought it was another maintenance worker. But they weren't in uniform. They weren't moving like someone inspecting the bridge. They were watching. I raised my flashlight toward them. The beam hit steel, and then reflected off something shiny. A face, half hidden by a hood, gone in a blink. My heart rate spiked. Someone was monitoring the bridge. Maybe the person who made the threat. I radioed into dispatch. "Unit on the harbor bridge. Possible suspect spotted. Sending coordinates." Static replied. Nothing else. I climbed higher along the catwalk, scanning the spans of steel that cut through fog. Each beam looked the same, but the torch marks told a story. The southern joint was compromised. The northern supports had scratches consistent with rope or cable, maybe rigging. This wasn't a prank. This was planning. Someone had mapped the bridge. They knew what to weaken and when. I snapped pictures, trying to capture every angle. Then I heard it, faint but distinct, a metallic click. Not from above, not from my equipment. Somewhere along the lower beams, a bolt had shifted, then fell into the water with a soft plink. I froze. Cullen called again from above. "Detective? Everything okay down there?" I swallowed. "Yeah, but they're here. Someone else is here." We both scanned the area. The fog thickened, and the distant traffic sounded muffled, unreal. For a moment, the bridge felt deserted, abandoned, though we knew it wasn't. I pulled out my phone and snapped one last picture of the southern joint before heading back to the ladder. Every step I took echoed like a warning. Someone was ready to turn this bridge into a trap. And the countdown from the phone call, before 5, was already running. By mid-afternoon, the city had fully woken, and traffic hummed over the harbor bridge like nothing had happened. I walked the pedestrian lane, pretending to observe the structure, but my eyes never left the steel spans and maintenance platforms. I had pulled all recent access logs, surveillance footage from cameras along the bridge, and inspection reports. Nothing out of the ordinary, except for one small detail. The maintenance hatch near the southern joint had been opened at 3:17 a.m., hours before anyone noticed the welding marks. No one was logged to have used it. I crouched near the hatch, flashlight beam cutting through the shadows. There was a faint oily residue on the edges, like someone had wiped their hands before climbing down. And in the mud beneath, small footprints, narrow, precise, wet, leading to the river's edge. Someone had slipped out unnoticed. I went back to my office to examine the surveillance footage more closely. One camera, positioned to overlook the lower beams, showed something unusual. At 3:16 a.m., a dark shape swung across the beam. Not a human stride, more like a crawl, carefully hugging the steel like a shadow. The figure moved fast, precise, confident. And for a split second, the lens caught the glint of a metallic object in their hands, something cylindrical, small, probably a tool or device. I paused the footage, zooming in. It wasn't a weapon in the conventional sense. It looked like a sabotage timer or rigging device, designed to compromise the integrity of the joint. The implications hit me instantly. If left unchecked, the bridge could fail under the weight of traffic, and someone was counting on it. I returned to the bridge under the cover of night. Fog rolled over the roadway, headlights from distant cars cutting hazy beams through the mist. I brought a flashlight, a pair of gloves, and my gun. The southern joint was quiet. Too quiet. I leaned over the railing, scanning the lower beams. Then I noticed movement, a rope dangling just beneath the maintenance platform, swaying gently. My pulse quickened. Someone had already rigged it. The question wasn't whether, it was when. I climbed down carefully, using a ladder attached to the side. The water below was dark, reflecting the glint of streetlights above. I could see the device now, a small timer, wires coiled around a beam, connected to what looked like an improvised cut mechanism. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me. The person who called earlier, or someone working with them, could be anywhere. Watching. Waiting. A sudden metallic click echoed from above. I spun. A shadow moved across the upper span, fleeting, almost blurred. The countdown had begun. The metallic click echoed again, closer this time. I froze on the ladder, gripping it tightly, listening. The fog muffled sounds, but my instincts told me someone was moving along the upper span, pacing, observing. I climbed down cautiously, keeping my flashlight trained on the timer. The device was crude but effective, wires coiled tightly around the steel beam, a small cylindrical cutter positioned against the key support bolt. A countdown display blinked faintly in red, I couldn't read the numbers from this distance, but I didn't need to. The threat was immediate. I grabbed my radio. Dispatch, I have visual on a sabotage device at the southern joint. Evacuate the bridge now. Static. Then a faint voice. Detective Pierce, the bridge is... The line cut. I cursed, realizing the device was rigged to activate if tampering was detected. No one else could approach the bridge without triggering it. It had to be me, careful, methodical. I looked around, scanning the fog. Then I saw movement above, a figure leaning over the railing, hood drawn tight, flashlight off. Watching. Stop! I shouted, but the fog swallowed my voice. The shadow vanished. Whoever it was had climbed higher, moving along the upper span, disappearing into darkness. I focused back on the device. The cutter's blade rested against the support bolt, wet steel gleaming faintly. I pulled a small toolkit from my bag, hands steady despite the adrenaline. The first wire I cut, testing its reaction. Nothing. Second wire. Still stable. Third wire. The countdown on the display blinked faster. Someone was controlling it remotely. I realized the timer wasn't automatic. The saboteur could trigger it at any moment. And with every second, the bridge carried more cars. A sudden sound, a footstep along the maintenance catwalk above. I glanced up. The figure had returned, crouched on a beam directly over me. A small silhouette, balanced like a predator. I ducked behind a beam, flashlight trembling in my hand. The figure froze, then dropped silently, landing near the water below. I chased after, lunging into the fog and shadows, but the figure disappeared. Only wet footprints remained. Finally, I returned to the device, hands trembling. I pulled out a wire cutter, took a deep breath, and severed the main trigger line. The display went dark. Silence returned. For a moment, nothing moved but the fog rolling across the steel and the distant hum of traffic. I exhaled, soaked, heart pounding. The bridge was safe, for now. But I knew the saboteur hadn't left. The device had been too precise, too carefully placed. Someone wanted me to find it. Someone wanted me to know how close the city had come to disaster. And I knew they would try again. The fog hung thick over the harbor bridge, the city lights blurred by mist. I stayed on the span long after the traffic had thinned, scanning the steel beams, the maintenance catwalks, every shadow. Whoever had planted the device was no ordinary saboteur. They moved like a ghost, knowing the structure, knowing me. I checked the footprints again. Wet, narrow, precise, disappeared into the fog near a service ladder leading down to the riverbank. I followed them carefully, boots splashing in shallow puddles, flashlights slicing through the mist. The metallic tang of the water mixed with the faint smell of oil and rust. Every step echoed, every ripple felt deliberate. At the base of the bridge I found evidence, a discarded tool kit, empty canisters of industrial solvent, and a notebook. The pages were soaked, ink bleeding, but one line was clear. They never see it coming. The bridge is the message. The handwriting was precise, almost clinical. Someone was making a statement. I heard movement behind me, snapping of a branch, faint crunch of gravel. I spun around, gun raised. No one. Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged, hood drawn low, face obscured. Slow, deliberate steps. I leveled my flashlight. The beam caught the edge of a mask, a glint of metal. Why? I asked. My voice sounded small, swallowed by the fog. The figure stopped, silent for a long moment. Then, a hand extended, not threatening, but holding something. A photo, soaked and curling at the edges. I took it. It showed the bridge, but not as it was. The steel girders were bent, molten at the joints. And in the corner, a single figure in maintenance uniform, back turned, watching. No words. Only a gesture, look closer. I realized then what this was. Not a simple act of destruction. It was a warning. A test. The saboteur wasn't attacking the bridge for money, or revenge, or power. They were proving a point. Somewhere above the city, someone, or some organization, could dismantle infrastructure, leave chaos, and remain invisible. The figure turned and vanished into the fog as silently as they had appeared. I stood there alone, the river below dark and still. The bridge seemed normal now, safe. Yet I knew better. The message was clear: someone had tested the city's nerves, and the harbor bridge had been their canvas. I pocketed the photo. The call. The countdown. The sabotage. It was all part of a larger plan I hadn't fully seen yet. And I would find it. Because Detective Pierce never lets a message go unanswered.